Hello there. I think we have a lot to discuss. So we will be starting with the idea of community over emotional stability. And yes, it is sort of a clickbait because I'm no psychiatrist and just it is just based on the events which I went through and just some hypothesis I've curated. Now if it is something which is already written and which is something already shared in other videos, then amazing. I have not done much research for me to talk about. But then just something which was crossing my mind when I was washing my face and I decided to talk about it. Now, when what my argument here is that when you're going through an event which is very chaotic, life altering, probably traumatizing, or just creating more avenues for you wherein you have to use your brain to the maximum capability, therein having to process your emotion becomes secondary and dealing with the event at hand becomes primary, because then, especially if it involves more people, different people who you have no control over directly, at least the event becomes more important than you handling your own inner emotions. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't. All I'm saying is that the significance of these two different things changes. And then the most important thing becomes community, especially in this day and age wherein a lot of the focus has shifted to isolation and individualism, and a lot of people are proud to be individualistic and to not seek community and to just say that I'm alone and I'm okay with being alone. The idea in itself is good, that you do not need other people to sustain yourself, which is great. Being independent sounds cool, but then community becomes as much important when you are going through events wherein a shared community can actually help you power through. What I mean by this here is to say that when you're going through something, when you're going through a life altering experience, and every single person goes through this at least once in their lifetime, therein your community is the one which is going to hold you up. Because in that chaotic event, if you end up being emotional, I'm not saying you should go numb, because going through your emotions, experiencing your emotions is very fundamental and we all should be doing it. But then when you're responsible for a lot of people and you happen to not be able to focus on your emotion, your community is there to hold you up. Your community is going to ensure that you are actually taking care of yourself, and if you're not, then they are going to be there for you. That is what I mean by community. A community here, I do not mean is people who you say hello to once or twice. Community are people who are okay with going through the trouble of taking care of you, and community is the amount of people and the people who are okay with sharing your burden. Now, you cannot completely eradicate, the idea that people say that you can never be a burden. I think it's quite far fetched. We are a burden to each other, and I think that is where the community comes along, that you're okay with sharing the burden, that you're okay with shouldering the burden of the another. This is where community comes along, and this is where community becomes more important than actually processing your emotion at the point of the event. What I'm saying is that processing your emotion is a good thing to do, obviously, but this should happen post consequence of the event. That means that after the event has passed, after when you have been logical, been reasoned with, and when you have actually handled the situation at hand quite logically and dealt with it, then you process your emotions of whatever you went through and how it impacted you and how it altered your brain chemistry, and how the things which needed to be done could not get done, and how your emotional needs could not be fulfilled, yada yada. That could be dealt with post event. And I'm not saying that this cannot happen during the event. Of course it can. It is just the hypothesis in the particular situation that I'm considering.